Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Jeff's Nonsport Card Universe, where we look at the history, evolution, and just plain fun of collecting non-sport cards. Now, at this time, I'd like to say to all of you, howdy, partners. Throw a leg over your saddle and let's mosey on down to the corral where we're going to talk about two more of the foundational card sets for early non-sport card collecting. Now, I do also want to put a disclaimer here up front. Both of these sets, by today's standards, are not politically correct at all. People who collect these cards know that. They look at them more as a time capsule of what people thought in the early 1900s. All right, now with that disclaimer said, the card sets we're going to look at are by the American Tobacco Company. The first one was issued in the fall of 1909, and it's called the Hassan Cowboys series because Hassan Cigarettes was the brand within the American Tobacco Company that issued these. The second is called Indian Life in the 60s. Only the 60s are the 1860s. Now, both sets are highly romanticized views of what people thought life in the Old West was actually like. Some people consider both of these to be part of the same set because the Cowboys were issued in fall of 1909. The Indian Life in the 60s cards were issued in the spring and summer of 1910, so one directly followed the other. All right, the point here is these cards were loved because everybody had such a romantic view at the time of what the Old West was like. And remember, in the fall of 1909, this was even only 4 years after Geronimo was signing autographs at the 1904 World's Fair, and several other major Native American chiefs and several of the older sheriffs were still making the rounds on the lecture circuit and talking about the glory days of the Old West, when in reality, a lot of the history was forgotten when this set was put together. Now, the first one, the Cowboys series, is highly romanticized, and it shows the Cowboys mostly just having fun and goofing off. There's a little bit of work involved here, but again, this is Cowboy light. Now, let's jump into some of the cards. I apologize, I'm going to have to put my glasses down a little to read some of these titles because it's very faint on the tops of the cards. The fronts of the cards are beautiful, rich, full color. The first one I want to show you is called Shooting Up the Town, and that's very representative of what these cards appeared like. Now, let me read you just a very brief section of the back. Sometimes they rode into saloons and demanded drinks for themselves and their horses. It was considered quite good form for a cowboy to shoot out the lights in a place, and was also proper to call the next day and settle for all the damage done. All right, the backs had tremendous write-ups. Again, really leaving reality and history pretty much out of it. These were strictly for entertainment. And they had the Hassan Cigarettes brand on the back, the cork tip cigarette, the Oriental Smoke. Now let me show you some more. All right, here we go. Branding a calf. Look at the color there. Very, very nicely done. How about repairing a brake? Quite often the fences would go down, and that was part of their jobs. They would have to go out and do that. How about this one? Darning a sock. Well, I don't remember that in too many John Wayne movies, actually. You'll also notice that in most of these, everybody's smoking like mad. But then again, these were put out by a cigarette company, right? All right, roping and tying, which was done quite often on the ranch, on the range. How about this one, a cowboy race? Yeah, there were a lot of races in the cowboy movies I saw. This one, a close call where a wild bull actually attacks a rider who's trying to herd in a bunch of cattle. How about this one, the lariat dance? It even says that some cowpokes made quite a bit of money with their lassos at contests and such. This one is driving out the horse herd because herds of horses were also quite profitable as well. This one, On the Hunt, shows them actually stalking a bear and other wild game. Now, this set should have been 50 cards, but only 49 were issued. One of the cards supposedly was pulled. We really don't know a lot about what I'm going to tell you next, so this is an area where some of you might want to do an additional investigation. Supposedly, one card was pulled because it was too violent, and people objected strongly to it. The card we think we know, was called An Exciting Game, and what it showed was a man shooting a card cheat in the head after the guy had cheated in a poker game. Now, we think this was the pulled card because the same artwork for this set was used multiple times in later years for sets produced by different companies, everything from ice cream companies to bread companies. All right, now, the ones that are number 50, well, they're not numbered, but the cards that are in the sets that round out the 50 are An Exciting Game. I have one of these, but it's from the baking company, and this is what it looks like. Yeah, he's shooting the skunk in the head. And it says on here, Cowboys are a very decent bunch. Most are honest and trusting and they expect everyone to be the same. However, when a skunk turns up and tries cheating, whether at cards or horse stealing, he gets the treatment of a skunk. In other words, he gets shot in the head. So mine is from the baking company. Even these, because it helps round out the sets for others of the Hassan sets, the others go for up to $500 at auction recently. I swear I've seen this card as a Hassan cigarette card twice at the National in the last 5 years. So I believe the card really is out there. I believe it was issued, then pulled, but there are so few of them out there, it's like the holy grail for those that collect this set. All right, now in terms of cost, these cards are about $5 in decent condition, much more in higher grade, especially if they're graded. There are really no known rarities other than the missing card, so this is a pretty straightforward set to complete. It is unnumbered, so you'll have to get a title checklist in order to make sure you have all of them in the set. All right, now let's jump right into the next set, issued shortly after this in the spring of 1910, and this was Indian Life in the 60s. And there is no doubt no Native Americans were consulted in the makings of these cards. They are so romanticized, and what people in the early 1900s really believed that life was like on the plains in particular for the Native Americans. So here are what some of those cards look like, and there are 50 in this set, but there is one controversial card we'll get to in a minute. This is the Indian Medicine Man. The artwork is done by the same group that did the Cowboy series cards. This one is one of my favorites, The Flight of the Arrow. And this talks about the contest that they often had to see who could shoot the best with a bow and arrow. This is a horse racing. Well, we have the same one in the Cowboy set, basically. This one is Indian Boy Playing with Pet Crow. And it goes on to talk about how the Native Americans were really one with nature. Now, the backs of these cards, I should also show, are just about like the Cowboy series cards. Very detailed narratives and the advertisement for the cigarettes. This one is the Indian chief painting his face, and it says he did so as a measure of fear for his enemies. This one is lassoing a buffalo calf as part of a buffalo hunt. Pretty interesting there. All right, now, this set has one of the most controversial cards in the history of non-sport card collecting. I have a nice example here. It is called Puppy Stew. Now, if you look closely at this, it shows a mother, shows a youngster, and shows a puppy looking at a boiling kettle. And the back of the card, it says that young dog was highly prized for its meat. So basically, you've got this poor young puppy looking into the boiling water he's going to be shoved into shortly. Yeah, pretty bad. All research seems to indicate that this card really was pulled because so many people had a fit about it. It does command a little bit of a premium today, but quite frankly, this card really isn't that tough to get. It's just the fact that it is incredibly controversial. All right, so these are the two sets put out by the American Tobacco Company, specifically through Hassan Cigarettes. They are very representative of the early non-sport cards, the artwork, the layout, the design, and they are very romanticized, as a lot of these were at the time. Now, in terms of price, the Indian Life in the 60s cards run parallel with the Cowboys series cards, typically $5 or so for decent condition cards, much higher if they are graded. No known rarities, just a controversial card, the Puppy Stew. So that's your look at two more of the foundational issues for the early non-sport card collecting. If you've liked what you've seen, please subscribe. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please go to therappermagazine.com and get your free issue of the premier magazine for non-sport card collecting. So until next time, everybody, enjoy your cards, have fun. We'll see you soon.